Hey guys, welcome to Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller, if you like. Just want to drop a quick episode because the Cowboys made a couple of moves that are worth noting. So they signed Carl Lawson and they traded for Jordan Phillips from the New York Giants. They flipped a seventh round pick or a sixth round pick to the New York Giants for Jordan Phillips and a seventh round pick. Carl Lawson just to straight up sign it off the street. Watched both of these guys a little bit. It's kind of hard to get a little bit of a feel because most of the videos I've been trying to find are just showing you a couple of the highlights of the awesome plays that they made. Lets me know I need to get my NFL Plus in order because I need to see what's happening on the other, 30 or 40 snaps that these guys are playing. I don't want to just see the 6 snaps in the game where they made an awesome play because, of course, we're looking for a little bit more consistency in that. But I figure I get to watch them in practice, and that'll probably help me get a little bit more of a feel for how they are as players. But going off of what I saw, Jordan Phillips looks to be a pretty athletic defensive tackle with some pass rush upside, but definitely more in the run stuffing department, which is kind of what we need. He looks like, he'll probably end up being a rotational piece with Mozzie Smith. And he's probably going to be, if you're looking at Jordan Phillips and you go back and look at some of his film, he's the player that you hope Mozzie Smith develops into. He plays well with his hands. He plays with some decent pad level. He plays with some power. Good at shedding blockers, whether it's a double team, whether it's a one-on-one, but he doesn't have too many one-on-ones. Most of his reps do seem to be double teams, so that's what you like to see, him commanding double teams from the opposite, the opposing offense, and kind of freeing up the linebackers and freeing up some of the other defensive linemen to handle their one-on-one assignments. So he did play with some good power. He does have some pass rush upside. He seems to have a good motor. I know a lot of people complain about his injury history, but if you look back on the last 2 seasons, he's played 26 26 out of a possible 34 games. So for the most part, I think he played 12 in 2022, and he played 14 in 2023. So that's pretty durable. 5 games missed in 1 year, 3 games missed in another year, and playing that physical style of Buffalo. Hopefully he can bring some of that physicality here. He kind of kicked our butt when we went up there to play last year, so it's nice to now see him on our team. He is 31 years old, so I think that's more so where the injury worry comes from, is that he's playing in the trenches and he's over 30. But as long as he's in a rotation here, I don't know how much that'll be a factor. I kind of feel like injuries are injuries. If they're meant to happen, they happen. If they're not meant to happen, they don't happen. It's nothing that the player's age is about or, anything like that. It just kind of happens. They're freak things. Each injury is, you should look at it in a vacuum. Now, with Carl Lawson, he's more, I see him more as a run-stopping defensive end. He does play with some good technique in the run game. He also plays with good power and good pad level. He's a really strong guy. And most of the time when I saw him commanded double teams from like tight ends or a tackle with a tight end, he was actually able to hold up at the point of attack and either force the run back inside or make the play himself. Also in the pass rush, when he rushes with good pad level and good bend, he's okay. The thing about it is his hand movement isn't consistent. So sometimes he's great at getting into the blocker and using his hands to swat away the tackle's punch and bend, his pad level gets low enough so that the tackle can't recover and get his hands back on him. He bends and takes the corner and is able to get some pressure on the quarterback. Where he gets into trouble is he doesn't always use his hands. Sometimes he wants to use some power to drive right down the middle of tackles, and as we know in the NFL, most of these tackles will just sit down on you and it's over. You'll drive down the middle. You might get there in 5 seconds, but the ball's already out in 5 seconds. So, but he does have a good motor in the pass rush game. So with someone like Micah Parsons out there on the field, who always kind of causes the quarterback to have to be on the move because he wins so quickly. Micah's winning in 2 seconds. So when he's winning quickly like that, the quarterback has to move. Carl Lawson, because of his high motor, he even though his hand placement isn't always good and his hand fighting isn't always good, he needs some more tools in his tool belt. belt, because his motor is so good, he's going to have a lot of cleanup sacks. He's going to have some of those sacks that Dorrance Armstrong used to get when Michael would get pressure and the quarterback would run away, but he would run right into Dorrance Armstrong's arms, and that's how Dorrance Armstrong got 8.5 sacks last year. Not always. Dorrance did win a couple of times, but a lot of those sacks were cleanup sacks. If you don't believe me, we can go back and watch the tape. We can look at the grading numbers, but that's neither here nor there. Carl Lawson's going to pick up a lot of some of those same things. I do think both of these players are going to make the team, and both of these players are going to be contributors, which is good. A lot of times we get signings like we got last week with both of the linebackers, and I told you they were pretty much camp bodies to kind of help, and that pretty much is what they were. Overshown didn't play that much. Like I told you, Kendricks wasn't going to play at all. He didn't play at all. Leofau only played the first series, and here we go. Those linebackers that they just signed, they're out there for the bulk of the snaps, So the same thing with the defensive tackle that they signed, and he was pushed all over the field and got kicked out of practice yesterday. So you're not going to get that with Carl Lawson. You're not going to get that with Phillips. The only way these guys aren't going to contribute is if they get hurt. But other than getting hurt, both of these guys are going to be, on the field for the Cowboys in Week 1 and going forward into the season. Carl Lawson, to me, would probably step right in as your starting defensive end beside DeMarcus Lawrence. So they're probably going to work him in slowly. They're probably going to have Marshawn Nealon still taking the 1 reps for the most part now. And even when the season starts, I don't know if they're going to throw Nealon out there full-time, number one, but they might. But eventually Carl Lawson's going to be your starting right defensive end beside DeMarcus Lawrence. So you're going to have Lawrence on the left side where he always is. You're going to have Lawson on the right side. Now, they might flip sometimes because I know Zimmer doesn't like his defensive linemen to be schemed out of the game. So sometimes he wants to flip them around and make sure that the offense can't get a good idea of where one person's lining up. But for the most part, in your base defense, eventually that's who's going to be your guy. I do think Mozzie Smith is still going to be your starting defensive tackle, but I do think Phillips is going to come in and give you, pretty much probably about 40% of the snaps and be a good rotational piece for the Cowboys on that middle line. So now you've got to just figure out who your backup is to Osa, because we still don't really have a backup for Osa. We're trying out Golston there. I think Fajoko's going to end up being more of an edge. It looked like Zimmer was saying even Golston's going to be playing more of an edge. So we still have to kind of figure out this defensive tackle rotation behind Osa. But it's nice to see the Cowboys actually go out and not necessarily stand pat with what they're seeing in practice and on the defensive line. They actually went and made some moves. They went and did Muhammad and they did Shaka Toney. But those guys haven't really given it much in the way of pass rush. They haven't really showed up on film as much. Muhammad more than Toney, but still not what you'd like to see. So glad they went out, made some signings. Just wanted to hop on real quick, recap this with you guys. I'll still be on tonight with my regular episode. But if you like the video, hit like, subscribe. If there's anything specific you want me to cover, leave it in the comments below. But until then, this has been Knockers on the Bottom. I'm your host, Jay Mill. Jay Miller if you like. Peace.